Crazy Ralph. Now, Crazy Ralph isn't exactly evil, but man, this guy was asking for it. He's been wandering around Camp Crystal Lake for 2 movies, jumping out of bushes and screaming, "You're all doomed," at teenagers like some kind of discount prophet. Ralph's got this habit of hiding in random places and scaring the crap out of people who are just trying to do their jobs. He lurks around corners, pops up from behind trees, and generally acts like that one uncle nobody wants to invite to family gatherings. When Jason finally gets him with a piece of barbed wire around the neck, it's almost a relief. Like, finally, someone shut this guy up. Ralph spent 2 entire movies being a creepy nuisance, and Jason just solved everyone's problem in one quick motion. The best part? Ralph saw it coming. He literally predicted his own doom for years, but kept hanging around anyway. Talk about commitment to a bit. Andy the prankster. Andy from part 3 is that friend everyone has who thinks being annoying is a personality trait. This guy's idea of fun is doing handstands everywhere, making stupid jokes at inappropriate times, and generally being the human equivalent of nails on a chalkboard. He spends the entire movie pranking people, doing obnoxious gymnastics routines, and hitting on girls who clearly want nothing to do with him. Andy's the type of guy who thinks "it's just a prank, bro" is a valid excuse for being a complete pest. The final straw comes when he decides to walk on his hands down a hallway while everyone else is trying to figure out why their friends keep disappearing. Because nothing says appropriate response to danger like showing off your handstand skills. Jason splits him in half with a machete while he's upside down. One clean cut right down the middle. It's like Jason was doing the world a favor by removing Andy from the gene pool. Honestly, the only tragedy is that it took 3 movies to find someone annoying enough to make Jason's violence feel justified. Teddy, the bully. Teddy, from the final chapter, takes teenage douchebag behavior to Olympic levels. This kid's got serious anger issues and takes them out on everyone around him, especially anyone smaller or weaker than he is. He's constantly starting fights, making threats, and generally being the kind of person who peaks in high school and then spends the rest of his life telling everyone about how tough he used to be. But Teddy's real specialty is terrorizing Corey Feldman's character, Tommy. He's got this creepy obsession with intimidating a little kid, which is pretty much the fastest way to lose audience sympathy in any horror movie. When Jason shows up and starts his rampage, Teddy tries to act tough. He grabs a knife and talks big about how he's going to take down the killer, because apparently he thinks his experience bullying children has prepared him for supernatural serial killers. Jason drives a corkscrew through his hand and into his skull. It's quick, brutal, and honestly kind of satisfying to watch. Teddy spent the whole movie picking on people smaller than him, so it's poetic justice when he meets someone bigger. Officer Pappas. Officer Pappas represents everything wrong with small-town authority figures. This guy's got a badge and a serious case of power trip syndrome that makes him insufferable from his first scene. Pappas spends most of the movie harassing Tommy Jarvis, who's trying to warn everyone that Jason's back. Instead of listening to legitimate concerns about a serial killer, Pappas decides to be a bureaucratic nightmare and focus on paperwork. He's condescending, dismissive, and more interested in asserting his authority than actually protecting people. When people start dying, his first instinct is to blame Tommy rather than, investigating the actual murders. The best part about Pappas is that he's so caught up in his own ego that he completely ignores obvious danger signs. Jason could probably walk right up to him wearing a name tag that says, "Hi, I'm the killer," and Pappas would still find a way to blame Tommy. When Jason finally gets him, it's with a dart through the head. Clean, quick, and incredibly appropriate for someone who spent the whole movie being a pain in everyone's neck. Sometimes you need someone in authority to actually use their authority responsibly. Pappas wasn't that guy. Dr. Cruz. Dr. Cruz from The New Blood is hands down one of the most despicable characters in the entire franchise. This guy's supposed to be helping Tina with her psychic abilities, but he's actually just exploiting a traumatized teenager for his own gain. Cruz doesn't care about Tina's mental health or well-being. He sees her telekinetic powers and immediately starts thinking about how he can use them to make himself famous. He's basically a predator in a lab coat. Throughout the movie, he manipulates Tina, lies to her mother, and puts everyone in danger just so he can study her abilities. When people start dying, his first thought isn't about safety. It's about how this might affect his research. The worst part is how he gaslights Tina whenever she tries to stand up for herself. He uses his position as a doctor to make her doubt her own instincts and feelings. It's psychological abuse disguised as therapy. When Jason shows up, Cruz tries to use Tina as a human shield. Because of course he does. The guy who spent the whole movie exploiting a vulnerable teenager immediately throws her under the bus when things get dangerous. Jason cuts him down with a weed whacker to the stomach. It's messy, it's brutal, and it's exactly what this creep deserved. Sometimes karma comes in the form of an undead serial killer, and honestly, that's fine by me. Principal Strickland. Principal Strickland from Jason Takes Manhattan is every awful high school administrator you've ever encountered, cranked up to 11. This guy makes Ferris Bueller's principal look like a saint. Strickland spends the entire movie being a petty tyrant who seems to genuinely hate teenagers. He's not just strict, he's cruel, vindictive, and takes obvious pleasure in making students miserable. His treatment of Rennie throughout the movie is particularly nasty. Instead of being supportive of a student with clear trauma issues, he goes out of his way to make her life harder. He's like a guidance counselor designed by someone who's never met a teenager. But Strickland's real problem is that he's a coward who hides behind his authority. He talks tough when he's got power over students, but the moment real danger shows up, he immediately starts looking for someone else to blame. When Jason boards a ship, Strickland's first instinct is to sacrifice students to save himself. He literally tries to throw kids to the killer while he runs away. Because apparently, protecting students wasn't covered in his administrator training, Jason drowns him in a barrel of toxic waste. It's poetic justice. The guy who spent his career poisoning young minds gets taken out by actual poison. Plus, getting drowned in sludge is probably the most undignified death in the entire franchise. Robert Campbell. Robert Campbell from Jason Goes to Hell represents every corrupt authority figure who abuses their position for personal gain. This bounty hunter is supposed to be hunting Jason, but he's really just in it for the money and glory. Campbell doesn't care about stopping a killer or protecting innocent people. He's got dollar signs in his eyes and a serious case of main character syndrome that makes him insufferable from his first appearance. Throughout the movie, he puts civilians in danger, ignores police protocols, and generally acts like he's the star of his own action movie. He's got that special combination of arrogance and incompetence that makes you root against him. The worst part about Campbell is how he treats the other characters. He's dismissive of local law enforcement, condescending to anyone who questions his methods, and completely indifferent to collateral damage. When he finally faces off against Jason, all that bravado disappears real quick. Suddenly, he's not the tough guy bounty hunter anymore. He's just another scared victim who bit off more than he could chew. Jason kills him in a particularly brutal way that I won't spoil, but let's just say it involves getting very well acquainted with Jason's machete. Campbell spent the whole movie hunting the wrong prey and ended up becoming prey himself. Laurie's dad. Laurie's dad from Freddy vs. Jason is the poster child for terrible parenting and medical malpractice. This guy has been secretly drugging his own daughter to suppress her memories, which is pretty much the worst way to handle trauma ever conceived. Instead of getting Laurie proper therapy or support for her psychological issues, Dad decides to just drug her into compliance because apparently better living through chemistry is his approach to mental health care. Throughout the movie, he continues to gaslight Laurie about her own experiences and memories. He's not trying to protect her. He's trying to protect himself from having to deal with the consequences of his terrible decisions. The worst part is how he teams up with other parents to cover up Freddy's existence, which just makes the problem worse for everyone. These adults are so concerned with avoiding responsibility that they're willing to let their kids die rather than face the truth. When Freddy finally gets his hands on Laurie's dad, it's honestly satisfying to watch. The guy spent the whole movie lying to his daughter and putting her in danger, so getting killed by the very monster he was trying to hide feels like appropriate justice. Sometimes bad parenting has consequences, and sometimes those consequences involve getting murdered by a dream demon. That's just how it goes. Trent. Trent from the 2009 reboot is basically every entitled rich kid stereotype rolled into one incredibly punchable package. This guy's got daddy's money, a serious attitude problem, and zero respect for anyone he considers beneath him. He spends the entire movie being condescending to his friends, dismissive of their concerns, and generally acting like he owns the world because his trust fund is bigger than everyone else's. Trent's the kind of guy who thinks money makes him better than other people. His treatment of the other characters is particularly awful. He talks down to everyone, makes classist jokes, and seems genuinely confused when people don't appreciate his humor. It's like watching someone who learned social skills from a business seminar. But Trent's real problem is that he's a coward who hides behind his wealth and status. When things get dangerous, he immediately starts looking for ways to save himself while throwing everyone else under the bus. When Jason finally catches up to him, Trent tries to buy his way out of trouble, because apparently he thinks a supernatural serial killer is going to accept a credit card payment in exchange for his life. Jason kills him in a particularly creative way that involves a truck and some very painful looking physics. It's brutal, it's satisfying, and it's exactly what happens when entitled, Rich kids meet real-world consequences. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and drop your ideas in the comments below.